Hello, this is Lisa Russick and Misty Lore with the podcast We're All Psychic. And today we have an amazing guest. We were on his podcast, and today he is on our podcast. And Phil, Paranormal Phil, would you like to say hello?
Hello, everybody. And can you hear
I don't
me?
hear them. I think they're saying it in their spirits. They're saying hello back.
Yes.
Misty,
Hello.
Misty, would you like to ask Phil the question?
I would love to. Phil, Do you think that we're all psychic?
I believe we do have all that ability and everything like that. When we are young, we're not corrupted by the everyday world, and we're allowed to see and communicate with the spirit world. But a lot of times when we grow older, we're told that it's not real, it's not, just our imagination. And that ability gets pushed from our third eye here all the way back to our deepest subconscious mind, and it gets locked away. It's still there, but a lot of people don't know how to unlock that ability.
I agree.
We agree. And a lot of people on the podcast agree with what you just said who have been on before. They say, some people, like Misty, was one of those people who, when she was younger, she blocked it out. And then in the past few years, she's been opening it back up and relearning. I mean, she had it when she was born, and then she kind of shut it down. And then she's bringing it back out. She's opening it back up. She's waking it back up. However you want to put it. She's working.
Well, yeah, it's scary. When you've had it locked up, and you're going to open it. It's scary.
There's a reason it was locked.
Yeah.
So Phil, how did you get to that conclusion? Like, have you had psychic experiences?
Well, I've had the ability since I was 5 years old. That's the earliest memory of it, or at least the earliest memory of being able to see and communicate with spirits. I had my first experience when I was 5 years old. Went out to the kitchen when I was around midnight at night, and most kids should be asleep at that age, but I wasn't. And I was always the mischief child. But I went out there and I saw this little boy playing with a ball on top of the refrigerator. And like I said, most kids would be like, what the hell is that? Or go back to bed. Me, I was like, no, I want to play with that ball. Come down here. So that's the earliest memory of being able to see and communicate with spirits. And then I just grew from there with interest in the paranormal. When I was 15, my parents would take us on a trip to Calgary Stampede, Calgary, Alberta, Canada for the Stampede every year. And around 15, most kids would want like some kind of toy or something like that to enjoy the trip, especially in the early 80s. There was no internet, so kids would want toys and stuff like that. Me, of course, I wanted a book on Bigfoot.
Nice.
I like Bigfoot.
I love Bigfoot. So listeners, I'm gonna interrupt Phil for a minute. Listeners, if you haven't figured it out, Paranormal Phil does a podcast called Talk in the Night. Misty and I were guests. What was it, about 2 weeks ago, Phil?
Yeah.
And we covered a lot of the bases in his podcast about what he's been through and stuff, but we're going to tell you on our podcast, or he's going to tell you. So something interesting that I learned on your podcast, Paranormal Phil, is when you described both being sensitive psychic and also exploring the dangerous stuff, the spooky stuff, the explorations, the things he used to do when you're younger and still do. So listeners, he explores a lot of the mysteries, ghost hunting, stuff like that. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, are you asking like the different cases that I've worked on?
Yeah.
Sure. I've been on so many.
What's your favorite one?
Yeah, there you go. Your favorite one.
Probably the favorite one is the Oman House, which sits 150 feet away from where the Manson murders happened. I've had so many experiences there. The first time I went there, I didn't want to know anything of the location because it would interrupt my ability to use my third eye to see what's going on. So I did not want to know anything other than the murders happened at the end of the drive. So my friend took me out there. He had known David Ullman, and he's got his own YouTube channel. If people want to check that out. And my friend drove out there. He knew him, but only by phone or internet or like Facebook and stuff like that, but never met him in person. So he was meeting him for the first time as well, but he had talked to him. I didn't know David. So all I knew was, like I said, the murders happened at the end of the drive. And my friend drove out there. I was in the passenger seat navigating, and we're on the freeway about 40 miles away. And I knew where we were at the time. We were on the freeway, so we weren't getting lost there. We had to wait till we got to Los Angeles before I started navigating towards the hills of Beverly Hills, because you can get lost there. Trust me. But I was like, while we're waiting, let me pull up my phone and pull up Google Earth and look on the map just to see the surrounding area, what it's like. Just in case we need to make certain turns and stuff like that when we get there. And I looked on Google Earth on my phone, and I zoomed into David Ullman's house, and I started feeling this, like, right there. There's a portal to the spirit world right there. I was pointing it and trying to show my friend while he's driving 80 miles per hour down the freeway, which probably is not a good thing, but it's like, here. And he's like, just tell me about it, and tell me also when we get there. So we get there. I stood in the spot where I was pointing at on the map, and I said, this is where I was feeling the portal. And then we walked up to the door, knocked on the door, and David came out. And then Steve goes, tell David what you told me. And I went to the spot. I pointed out the spot. I told him what I was feeling, that there was a portal. And this is, again, when I saw this, we were 40 miles away.
Yeah.
So we were not right on top of the spot. And of course, David can attest to this. If anybody speaks to David, he will attest to this. This is what he had a shocked look on his face, like, how the hell did he know without knowing? Because the spot that I was standing on, a 5-gallon bucket of water full, tipped uphill by itself, which is impossible without some kind of force.
Wow.
Yeah, that's something.
I love, hearing about that kind of stuff. It's really cool. But on that particular one, it's been actually told, stories have been told that actually that place was, haunted before the murders even happened. Do you agree with that? As far as
there's a high electromagnetic field all in that canyon.
Like this?
Yeah. Where normal range is like 1 to 2,000, somewhere around there. We were hitting spikes of 6 to 8,000 milligauss.
Wow. Unbelievable. Wow. So is that the strongest you've ever been?
Yeah, I've been to other locations where there's strong electromagnetic fields, but as far as having the equipment to look and test that was the only place.
Okay.
The first place, I should say.
So do you think that had anything to do with them being murdered in the house, or do you just think it was a coincidence?
No, that was actually because there was somebody living in the house.
Right. I know the story, but do you really think that
I don't think that had a part to play in this. No.
No. Okay. It's just eerie. You know what I'm saying? All of it's just crazy.
So Phil, I was kind of wondering, when we did our podcast with you, I had a lot of questions I wanted to ask you for our podcast, and one of them is, when you realize, like, you were different, maybe for, I don't know, maybe a lot of kids at 5 seeing something on the fridge, something like that, not knowing it was dangerous or weird or not, or whatever, not knowing anything, just like, there's a kid on the fridge playing with a ball. I want that ball.
Right.
Do you feel like that, like, maybe people getting older and they hit puberty and they get self-conscious, they start, developing empathy and fears and stuff that they maybe didn't have before? And what kind of advice would you have for somebody who, like, for me, my psychic stuff started coming out when I hit puberty and I didn't know what it was. So for example, someone listening to the podcast who might relate to what you're saying, but at an older age, and maybe they had some fears, what would you recommend to them seeing these things, experiencing these things, and try to get rid of the fears?
That's a good question.
Yeah, it is a great question. And of course, like, luckily my parents, my mom was able to see spirits, so it she validated my experience. And a lot of parents don't do that.
Yeah.
And that kind of helps calm the fear. But if you don't have that, um, I would recommend seeking out somebody that does have the ability, like myself, to talk to them,
Right.
because I mean, like, going back to the Omen House, because there was another example where a lady was um, just new to her, and she was in her 20s. She was new to her abilities as an empath, and we had rented out the house next door, which had a darker energy to it. So she came out feeling physically ill. And
Mhm.
I said, somebody pointed it out to me, and I was sitting outside monitoring all the cameras. That was my job, for the most part. But, anyways, she came out. She was feeling like she wanted to puke on the ground and everything like that. So I went up to her. I said, uh, what's wrong? And everything like that, checking on her. And she said, I feel physically ill for being in that house. So I said, tell you what, stand up, take a couple, close your eyes, take a couple of deep breaths, and then imagine the brightest white light that you can imagine. And she did so, and instantly she felt better. So, again, that's not going to work on everybody, because not everybody's going to take the time to do it.
Well, some
But
people have a hard time visualizing stuff like that
Yeah.
too. It's
Yeah.
like if they haven't
well,
done it
yeah,
a lot, then it's,
at the same time, I was also projecting some of the white light off of me to help her.
yeah.
Right.
So that's why I said it's not going to work for everybody. But
Yeah, and it's like
that's
everybody
like,
can have something that'll work for them.
Yeah.
One thing we have a friend named Melanie who's been on the podcast, and I was feeling unsafe in the place I used to live at. So she says, "Well, what do you need?" She was running through what would make you feel better, and I kind of pinned it down to, I feel like if there was a dude in the house, I lived alone. I live alone, and I was like, if there was a dude in the house, I'd feel safer. I don't know why, but I would. And I had a situation where a neighbor was harassing me, my next door neighbor. And she says, well, Lisa, she says, why don't you ask Saint Michael? I said, I was raised Catholic, Archangel Michael, to fill your apartment with a warm male presence of safety,
Mhm.
energy. And I was like, okay, I'll try that. And I did. In my head, I asked, and while I was asking, I just felt this warm, just safety come through the house, like, and it just, everything felt secure, safe. I felt protected, and it did feel masculine,
Yeah.
So that's another like technique. If you like angels, if you connect
yeah.
with
Hey,
angels,
Well,
that's
it
neat.
also
Yeah.
goes on different belief systems too.
right,
It
Like
right,
me,
does.
I'm
It
Wiccan,
does.
so I call on the Guardians of the Watchtower, um, and my spirit guides to help me with,
Yes.
with that white light. And
Right.
like
right.
I said,
Yeah.
it all depends on the religion.
Well,
It
you know what I
does.
do? I've done the same thing, but I didn't really know until I talked to other people, of course, because you do things to protect you, but you don't know what everybody else does, but when I was like that, I would imagine angel wings surrounding me like in a bubble,
Mhm.
and that was my protection. And it felt good and it felt safe to me. So, that kind of was like a white light. And like Lisa said, hers was kind of the same too, and yours as well. It's all about, that feeling of protection.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it can come within, it can come from without, it can come from a
Yeah, you just
friend
gotta get
sending
it.
you some energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and being open to sensing the security given to you by whatever method you choose.
Right.
And Phil and Misty, I believe most of the people listening to this podcast have tried these things, and or they're going to because of this
Yeah.
podcast.
Yes. Yes.
So Phil, I was wondering, um I would like to ask you a few questions about your
Sure.
podcast. So, listeners, like I told you, he does talk in the night, and now his podcast is live, and it is on Monday through Friday for 2 hours a night. What are the? It's my Central Time. It was 9 to 11,
Yeah.
and is that right, Phil?
Yeah, Central Time is 9 to 11.
And it's just his show is I've listened to it, and it's just you wouldn't believe the guests he have he has the stories that are told. Just
Yes.
he explores all the angles of mysteries, and it's really fun podcast. You got to check it out.
Yes.
So what made you want to do that? You said in your podcast with us that you've been doing this for 10 years. So what
Yeah,
made you
10
do
plus
Talk in the
years.
Night? What-
Well, when I was in my early 20s, I got turned on to Coast to Coast AM, a late night radio show
Love
on
Coast to Coast.
traditional radio, for those that do not know what it is. And of course, nowadays it's run by George Norrie, and personally, I think he's become more of a salesman than a radio host. But so I stopped listening to it. But when I started listening, Art Bell, the late Art Bell, was the one that was hosting the show, and I was like, this is interesting. Of course, being interested in all aspects of the paranormal, not just ghosts and hauntings and stuff, but Bigfoot, cryptid creatures, UFOs, aliens,
Yeah.
all that aspects of it. So I was like, this is interesting hearing this stuff. And so I would listen to that show. Of course, on the West Coast, it was from 10 o'clock at night till 3 in the morning. So I would listen the whole 5 hours and never get sleep. But I was like, this is interesting. And so over the years, it just gave me that interest in doing radio. Then I started doing a show because I had a paranormal team out in California called PRT, which was Paranormal Research Team of Riverside. And I said, somebody told me about, I was listening to a friend do a internet radio show, and I was like, I can do this. So I went on to Spreaker. I was doing 30-minute shows, just me talking, no guests, me talking about the paranormal and experiences and everything like that. So I would do that, and then I increased it to 3 days a week. And eventually I started getting to where I was getting enough listeners to where I said, let me add guests to the show.
Mhm.
And then in 2016, and there was times that I would have to stop the show because of some kind of financial or other personal reasons. But in
Well, I just left them waiting for more.
yeah,
Yeah.
2016, I said, I'm not running this paranormal team no more. So why that name? So I said, I love, since I have guests on, and since I love and got the inspiration from Talking the Night, let me kind of model my show after Coast to Coast AM. So I was like, okay, let me think of names that I can come up with. And Talking the Night came to my brain, and I said, that's it.
I like it.
That's what I want to do.
It's
Yeah.
perfect.
It is. It
It's
is.
a perfect name. And
Yeah.
I love it. Hey Misty, you got some questions for Phil?
No, I do.
Oh, I know you do.
We were talking, or you were just talking about like UFOs and stuff too. Have you ever had any encounters with UFOs before?
I have only had one where I was looking up at the night sky, and something zipped across the screen, stopped on a dime, and I'm talking it was going full speed. Then zipped this way and then back the other way. And nothing that I know in our um, arsenal of the US, no aircraft can do that.
Right, right.
Not at the speed that it was doing.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine
Where were you? Were you in
uh
Texas?
no, Southern California.
Southern California.
I think I was out near the desert at the time, so you can see a lot more out there.
And it's like,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
endless. You can see
Yes.
million miles.
But anyways, I mean, I was like, there's nothing in our uh, military aircraft that can do that that I know of. But as I was about to say is, imagine a meteor streaking across the sky, but then it stops on a dime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
You're
crazy.
not going to see that.
No, you're not.
No.
So what are
How
you
big
looking-
was it? Like, was it?
Well, I mean, to me, it looked like a probably the size of a meteor at the
Okay.
time because of the height
Okay.
and
Okay.
the distance off. As you know, the more further away, the smaller it looks. So,
Right. Right.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's neat.
What are you wanting to do now, Phil? What are your goals now? I mean, you've done so much in the past. What are you wanting to do now?
I mean, my radio show is pretty much it. I don't do investigations anymore.
Okay.
Really, I mean, if some team calls me in for something, especially working with the darker energy entities and stuff like that, yeah, I might go. But otherwise, as far as the team goes, no. Because even when I was with the team, I prefer to be by myself because I was more open to the spirit world and I could do digital recordings to get that without the contamination of somebody talking nearby.
Right. Right. And don't you think that you can get like a better reading doing it that way as well? Instead of having other people,
Oh, yeah.
you can.
Their
Yeah,
energy
it's
around
like-
you.
especially with other people around me.
Yeah.
They got their own spirits with them, so they're gonna
Right.
be like, "Oh,
Yeah. So what would you suggest, like if somebody was going through something like that, would you suggest they call somebody like you, or what could they do to protect themselves? If that did happen to them, if they did have a haunting.
Well, if they have a haunting, I would recommend contacting a team and do your due diligence on the team because make sure that they're reputable and everything like that. I've come across people that contacted other teams before that were not reputable, and then they end up contacting me
Right.
and other teams that I worked with. So
Right.
it's like make sure you do your due diligence on that. Now, if you do have that darker energy, look for somebody in your area, um, because I don't have the way to travel a lot right now, so I can't exactly pick up and I could take the train to the airport and fly somewhere, but
Right.
personally, I love to have all my equipment, and it's a lot of equipment to try and carry on a plane.
I
So,
bet.
Yeah. Imagine. Yeah. So what would they do to protect themselves until they could get somebody out there?
now, if you do have that darker energy, if you again with the white light, try to surround your home with that positive energy, that white light. Again, imagine that white light if you can, uh, and make sure that your home there's positive energy in it because those darker entities hate that.
Yes, I agree.
Um, but if you really need the help, now I will state this because I had to deal with it with another case where is if I do the cleansing, it's up to you to keep it out
Yeah. Yeah.
because I'll state this: the one person I did a cleansing for, they were messing with the darker arts of the occult, which I did not know. and they
Yeah.
allowed it back in.
See,
And
waste of your time, wouldn't it?
yeah, so the client ended up calling us back in. And well, it wasn't the person that was messing with the cult that called us back in. It was the sister, but
Right.
that was living there. But she got kicked out because of the people. They just dealt with the darker arts of the cult, and
Mm,
I was like, there ain't nothing else I can do there. Unless
right.
you're moving out, that's probably that is the best outcome for you
Right.
to get out of that situation because
Right.
they're only destroying themselves.
They're
But
playing with fire. Yeah. Yeah.
if you're not doing that, I mean, just like I said, fill the home with positive energy. But if you can't, end up contacting me or somebody in depending on your faith, like a Catholic priest or father or somebody from the Christian faith or whatever your belief system is, and have them help you because every religion has somebody that can help you.
Okay. That's good advice. I like that.
I have a question, Phil.
So,
And listeners, I forgot to say in the beginning of this podcast, it's also a video podcast, and we got fancy for it. We have all kinds of cool backgrounds. So go look on Spotify if you want to see it. I'll put it in the description. But Phil, in the podcast we were on your show, when we were on your show, listeners or watchers, he told us that one thing, Misty asked, "What do you want to do next?" And I remember something you said that you had an ambition about, and that was going to Alcatraz and going in that solitary confinement room that nobody's been in there before by themselves with the door closed. And you said you wanted to do that. So I have a
yeah,
question for you.
sure.
What is the curiosity for you about these dark energies? What do you want to know about them? Why do you want to learn about them? Why do you study them? What's the interest there for
Well,
you?
I do it because I know I got that ability to get rid of them
Yeah.
and everything like that. I use my abilities for good to help cleanse people's homes and stuff like that too. But I also, I guess, I want to show people that you don't have to be afraid of them. And
Yeah.
that's why I talked about Alcatraz. Like Miss Lisa was saying, that I want to go into that solitary confinement cell, which no team on TV or nobody that I know of has ever wanted to go in alone. Nobody's ever wanted to go in with the lights out, even
Mhm.
with the door open, and nobody's wanted to go in with the door closed, even with more people. I want to do all three. I want to go in by myself with the lights out, with the door closed, sit there for 30 minutes to an hour.
Mhm.
And that is one of the scariest, supposedly the scariest solitary confinement cell on Alcatraz. A lot of murderers have been in there, and I'm thinking maybe I can bring that light into there, and maybe it won't be so scary. But I
Yeah.
also want to show people that if you go into a location like that with surrounded by a white light, surrounded with no fear, these things will run from you.
Yeah.
They have nothing to
All
take
his
from
men.
you.
Yeah.
They want your fear, and if you have none, then they have nothing they can get from us.
Right. Right. That's what they feed off
Seems
of,
like.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they'll try, if we can keep our bubbles.
Yeah.
Eh.
Tiny
Keep our
bubbles.
bubbles. So Paranormal Phil, we've already told the listeners and watchers that they can find your podcast, but would you like to tell them everywhere, anywhere they can find you and find out about you?
Sure. If people go to talkingthenight.com, you can find out about the show, all kinds of things about the show, what's coming up. I have story of the day, this day in history. I got list of guests, talking the night news. I'm working on a newsletter, which eventually, if I find time to finish it, I'll
I hear
get
you.
started. But you can find out what's coming up next and everything like that, what guests I got coming up. Um, so much up there.
There's a lot. You do a lot, Phil. And listeners and watchers, I can't recommend his show enough. And you know, I really enjoyed being a guest.
I did
It's
too. It's
2
fun.
hours, 5 days a week. I mean, it's entertainment that never ends. And there's
Right.
oh yeah. And
It's not
I
just
would
the paranormal that I deal with.
yeah, you do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Last week I had somebody talking about mental health, dating and relationships, terrorism, and then I did have one paranormal show. But I do a wide variety of topics, mostly the paranormal. But I have guests on to talk about technology and science, health and wellness, dating and relationships, politics and conspiracies, and veterans issues, which May 30th through June 2nd, I think it is. I got veteran organizations coming on the show to talk about that.
Oh,
Cool.
cool.
That's
For the
just
whole
Awesome.
Memorial
you do a
Day.
lot for people.
Yeah.
I would like to ask one last question. I always like to ask our guests to give listeners and watchers advice if they're just starting out learning about psychic abilities, magic, energy work, healing, any paranormal. What would you be your advice to someone just starting out? Maybe they have an interest in paranormal activity and that's where they want to start to learn about it. What would be your advice?
Well, I've had people ask me this question before. And the thing I tell people is if you got interest in the paranormal, study up on it, look into it, read, watch videos, see if that's really what you want to do. When I got started in the field, we didn't have the videos, we didn't have much. So it's like,
Yeah.
how do I do this?
Mhm.
But I mean, the way I got started was kind of weird in itself, but I would recommend um, talking to a paranormal team, see if you can join along on a case
Ooh,
investigation with them.
good idea.
But
That's a good
again,
idea.
like I said, I recommend looking into it first because you might not want to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially if they're with a team like with somebody like me that deals with the darker stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Know what you're getting into, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, let's see. There's a place out here called Goatman's Bridge. There's been satanic warships out there. There was a person tossed off the bridge
Oh, wow.
um, by an unseen force,
Oh, wow.
and I went out there by myself. Don't do that. I would recommend.
What
do not
happened
do that.
when you were out there?
Well, there was a big thunderstorm. I was out there to do a YouTube video. I had a YouTube channel Into the Paranormal, which I still have up, but I haven't done anything lately with it. But there was a huge thunderstorm, so all I could do was wait till the rain stopped. Had somebody out there to interview, but they had to leave, so I couldn't have them with me. But I was out there. A lot of people go out there, but um, I waited until the rain stopped. I did Facebook Live, so that way I had my tripod and everything. I was filming the bridge, and people were out there, and they told me about somebody being tossed over the bridge by unseen force. But
Ooh.
until they showed up, I was the only one out there, and I would not recommend that for anybody because if you're going into a dark location, you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
You had to use
Yeah.
some of your skills and whatnot to kind of calm the area down and kind of stay there. Sounds
But
like, yeah.
I was there. I was gonna walk across the bridge. I was gonna walk into the forest where people have said that there's been satanic worship and some darker stuff in the forest and film. But like I said, the thunderstorm kind of stopped that.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe that's why it happened.
Yeah, that's very true.
Thunderstorm protected you.
Yes.
Or yeah. So
I knew it was gonna rain. I knew that. It's Texas, so in Tornado Alley. So
yeah. We got nice tornadoes here in Alabama up
Yeah, we
north too.
do.
We get them a lot. But Phil, I really want to thank you for being on the show. And it's just, I love being on your show. Listeners, watchers, go check him out. He's awesome. And I would also like to thank my sponsor, Everclear. Our sponsor, Everclear. Everclear is an advice app where you get advice from psychics and empaths so you can get the clarity you need to create the life you deserve. And lastly, I want to thank you, listeners. Thank you for listening. Misty, thank you.
Please say thank you.
Phil, any last words for the listeners?
Yeah, again, they can check out the show's website, Talking the Night. You can find all the social media links there, but I will mention I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Discord, and YouTube, and LinkedIn, I would say, but it's more of a personal networking thing. But mainly Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Discord, and YouTube.
And I will
You can
put all this
tag
and I will put all this information in the description of the podcast so you can find him in his podcast and anything else, all the many, many myriad things he does. And thank you so much again. And y'all have a wonderful night, evening, day, breakfast. 3 a.m. Wake up. Enjoy it. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.